All right, well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for being on time. Our next presentation is with our living World War II veteran, George Bach, who came out here from Orange County on his own, no help from anybody, made it out here. We're so happy that he was able to be here. George, we met him in San Diego a few years ago when we had a commemoration ceremony at Mount Soledad, where we did a plaque for the Philippine Scouts. If you guys have never been to Mount Soledad, I highly recommend it. I didn't know it existed. And George came to our event afterwards, and it was great to see him. He came in uniform, and he's in uniform today. So I spoke to George a little bit earlier. He joined the Army and served in the Philippines right after the conclusion of World War II. And he was assigned to General MacArthur's, let's just say he was General MacArthur's personal bodyguard. And we'll let George explain after that. So please welcome George Bach.
Well, I'm going to stand here like this, and if you look at the picture in back of me, that's me. Yeah. The hat that is in there is the hat that's on my head. The shirt that you see there is the shirt that I'm wearing today. This picture was taken while General MacArthur, on July the 4th, 1946, while MacArthur, is it on or something? Okay. Anyway, it was taken on July the 4th, 1946, and MacArthur had gone up the stairway and back of the car and was giving the Philippines their independence. And so I'm there guarding his car, and you know, I ask people, what's wrong with this picture? Well, here's a historic event, and there's not a single paparazzi in that picture. And so, anyway, and this picture will come up later in some of the pictures that I want to show. In that picture, you see MacArthur's car. MacArthur was an egomaniac in a sense, which is fine. But anyway, he did not like the Army staff car. So he went out and he bought his own car. Okay, and it was a 1941 Packard Clipper. That's what the car is in back of you. You can see his license plate and so forth on it. But he bought it because it was air conditioned. At that time, the very few cars were air conditioned. MacArthur wanted to be in the Philippines. He wanted to be cool when he went places, you know. So anyway, we know that he bought the car. We know that it was a private car before he bought it. If you will look in the windshield of that car, you'll see some little white stickers on the windshield. When you enlarge it, one of them says A on it. And the A was a gas ration sticker from the United States at the time. And during the war, you had an ABC gas ration. Well, A, you got 8 gallons a month, you know. B got something more, and C was for defense workers. But we know that that car had belonged to a civilian. MacArthur bought it, shipped it to the Philippines, painted it to look like an Army car, put some numbers on it, sticks his license plate on it, and that was General MacArthur. So anyway, that's kind of the background. A little bit about myself. I'm a Depression kid. I was born in '26, and I lived through the Depression. I can remember things were really bad. In 1931, we lost our house in Philadelphia. I was born in West Philadelphia. And in the middle of the night, my parents get me up. I'm crying and screaming. They take me out to the suburbs, to my new house. And then it was called East Lansdowne, Pennsylvania. And so that's where I went to school, high school, and so forth. I got it in 1941. The war started, you know, I was in high school. I can remember Monday after Pearl Harbor, they took everybody into the high school auditorium. We heard the speech of Roosevelt and all, you know, and we all knew it was going to be a different kind of life after that. I was talking to Victor the other day, and you know, just we were talking about what happened in World War II. Well, everything, of course, was different. And one of the things is that Philadelphia produced 20% of the material, Army stuff and Navy stuff for World War II. We had a Navy Yard, a whole bunch of stuff. But the general area was industrialized. But everybody went to work. When I was in high school, we went to school during the day, and at night, some guy had some machinery in his basement around there, and 3 of us went over and we manufactured safety valves for PT boats at night. So we went to school during the day, worked at night, and anybody that had a way to make something or do something produced. And that's how Philadelphia really got the way it was. During the summer, we had a little steel mill in our town. You know, you wouldn't find it today, but we produced specialized steel castings.
Bring the mic to your mouth.
Oh, we specialized steel castings for the Navy. So I decided I was going to be drafted. So I said, okay, I'll enlist. So I went and I enlisted, and I was only 17. So when I got out of high school, I was too young to go on active duty. So the Army put me in a program called Army Specialized Training Reserve Program, ASTRP. And they sent me to Virginia Military Institute for my first year of college and military training. When I got out, I graduated I didn't graduate. When I finished my first semester, they put me in the Army. I went to basic training in Camp Wheeler, Georgia. And then I applied for OCS. I really wanted to go in patents in the Tank Corps, and I applied for OCS in the Tank Corps, and they approved me to go to OCS in Infantry, Tank Corps, or Engineering. Well, guess where I wound up? You know, infantry. And so I went to OCS, and I got out of OCS in December 1945. And 1 week after my 19th birthday, I was commissioned as second lieutenant. Okay. So I got sent to Fort Ord in California for training, but there was nobody training going at that camp at that time. So they said, well, we're going to send you to language school. And they sent me to language school to learn Korean. Well, we got all dressed to go to Korea. It's winter time, it's going to be cold. Put on our woolens, and we get on the boat to go to Korea. Well, captain didn't like that, so he headed for Manila. So anyway, I get off the boat in Manila in woolens. You know, it's not really the best way to be. At first, I was sent to Paranaque, which was a replacement depot camp, and waited for something, you know, assignment to a unit. Well, I figured out later that they really didn't know what to do with me. I'm too young to be thrown to the wolves and put out there and be an actual training officer with new recruits. I didn't have any experience, I'm pretty young. So finally, it turned out they found a Philippine Scout detachment. Most people don't know what the Philippine Scout detachment was. Well, I'll talk to them, but it was detached from the 57th Infantry. And General MacArthur liked the Philippine Scouts. He loved them from before the war. So he decided to have 200 pre-war Philippine Scouts assigned to him as his detachment, and we guarded his office, we guarded his apartment building, and we were available for special little ceremonies. If somebody came in, you want to have a little parade, well, they organized us and we went on the parade. Now, these pre-war Philippine Scouts, you just have to realize they were really professional soldiers. And one of the things that they did is, and I was just talking to Paul about it a minute ago, they took their OD equipment, their cartridge belts, their leggings, everything, and they bleached them white, absolutely white. And then they went and had the eyelets gold-plated. When whoever did their, ironed their shirt with their rice starch, starch on it, you could cut your fingers on the creases, you know. So when these guys, and they knew how to march, they knew how to parade, they were trained. And so that's one reason MacArthur liked them, you know. When we went on parade, we were actually a pretty unique unit. So that was, and actually it got to the point, one day I'm standing in front of my platoon, here I had got 33 guys I'm responsible for, I'm still 19, you know, and I said, I'll ask these guys how long they've been in the Army. Well, it turns out the least amount of service was 15 years. The most amount of service was 38 years. The guy'd been in the Army twice as long as I've been alive, you know? What am I doing out here? So anyway, the Philippines, we had this little detachment. We also had 200 Japanese prisoners of war that we guarded. And when I get into the pictures, I'll show them in a minute, I'll show you where we were. I didn't realize at the time what it was. We were in camp in the Luneta. If you guys know what the Luneta is, it's a main park in the Philippines. And so that was where we were. And it turns out later that actually, I figured out later, that we were in camp in what is now the United States Embassy grounds, right there on Rizal Park. And one of the things that was there, and you'll see it in the picture, is the national flagpole is there, and then the Rizal Monument is also, we were between the Army Navy Club and the Manila Hotel, and that's a really nice encampment right in the middle of Manila, you know? There we could go down Rizal Boulevard, or we could go along the coast of the seawall and so forth. So that, the little encampment that we had, there were, like I say, 200 of the Philippine troops, and there were 22 officers, 21 or 22 officers there, 7 Americans, and the rest were all Filipino officers. And one of the Filipino officers there, Captain Beltran, and I think one of the conventions, some of his children were there, but Beltran realized that I was kind of naive, and he took me under his wing, and he sort of helped me through and trained me a lot. So I was trained by the Philippine Scouts rather than me training them. They introduced me to life. And we had a pretty good life there because we had all kinds of benefits. Nobody bothered us, you know, you're MacArthur's guy, we're not going to mess around with you. And so we had our little officer there, and our leading officer was a commander, he was a Major Marcellinus. And then they had buildings called Dallas huts at the time. They were all made from plywood. So our quarters were these little Dallas huts all put together. And Marcellinus was a pre-war enlisted man. I found out later that even though he was a major right now, pre-war he was a sergeant major. He was an enlisted man. When the war came along, he was made into a commissioned officer, and he helped me a lot too. At one point, we kind of had a lot of free time. We could go and do things. I was a replacement officer for a guy by the name of Lieutenant Black. Well, it turned out at that time, if you had a Jeep assigned to you by the Army and it was stolen, you had to, I shouldn't say stolen, it was borrowed by the locals and they converted it into jitneys. And these little jitneys ran up and down the street, and you could get 4 Americans in, you could get 6 Filipinos, and that was the way it was. Pay a few pesos and off you went. And so anyway, Black had to pay for his $750 for his Jeep. And he decided that if I pay $750, I'm going to have a Jeep. So he stole a jitney back. And he put back and put Army numbers, painted it, Army colors and everything. So when he left, he said, hey, you can have the Jeep. So I'm driving around in my own little Jeep. And we took off the 616 tires and stole tires off the anti-aircraft searchlights that they had on trailers there. They're nice big tires, 750s, put 10 pounds of air in them, and it was like driving a Cadillac around. Who cares? And so we had girlfriends, and girlfriends could stay with us, and it was pretty nice life. And, you know, we would go get our San Miguel beer and all the rest of this stuff. And I can remember one night I wanted to, everybody, we had a thing, an insulated can called a Marmite can. And you could put ice in there and cool your beer. So in my little room, I'm deciding, okay, I'm going to have a radio. But it was 220 volt power. On my radio's 110, so I have to wire a light bulb in series with it. So I'm sitting on the Marmite can, wiring the thing up, and I guess I crossed the wire because the next thing I know, I'm in my bed. And the shock knocked me across the room. The Marmite can was condensate, so we're sitting in water, you know, kind of wet around. Anyway, little things like that went on all the time. Ultimately, when MacArthur left, I was sent up to Camp O'Donnell, and I went back into the 57th Infantry, and there I was a training officer. I actually ran the motor pool for Company A that I was in. My family, my history is, we all came from, my dad was an automobile mechanic, my uncles, my grandfather, they were all automobile mechanics. So I started out with some motor experience. I used to work for my dad. And so I was up there. Basically, we were just training troops up there. It was a typical thing. I wasn't like an infantry officer out training troops because I ran the motor pool, and I had to train the guys how to fix up sheets. We were a Class X unit up there. I don't know if you guys know that, but basically the Philippine Scouts weren't entitled to any really good material. So to get equipment, we had to go down to the salvage yard and get 2 or 3 cars, trucks or whatever we wanted out of the salvage yard, go back and cannibalize them and see if we could make one out of the thing, and we take back the cores and go get some more. So ultimately we built up a motor pool, but you know, we shouldn't have to do that. One of the things up there, real experience, the encampment up there was surrounded by Negritos. There was a tribe up there, Negritos, and they used to, for shower day, you had a shower once a day up in Camp O'Donnell. And the shower was there was a line between 2 metal barriers, walls. And across the top of it, there were some 2x4s, and on top of the 2x4s, there were 55-gallon drums with holes punched in the bottom of them. And that was a shower. You marched through that thing, you got soap on the first 55-gallon drum, and you better be rinsed by the time you got to the last one, because that was it. And in the Negritos, they used to wait for the American officers who was always over there, because we were white guys, you know, and they're out there with their bows and arrows, and they're little guys, they're only about this big. And they used to laugh at us. They'd say, "Oh, white guys, you know." We translated, somebody translated. So anyway, that's kind of the background. And now, with some help from Victor, I will bring up some pictures. There are 2 sets of pictures. One set I've had for a long time, and you'll see they're more professional. They were actually, these are the pictures of you guys getting your independence. They were the preparation the day before, the actual ceremony, then some taking during the ceremony, and I'll explain that. The other set of pictures that are not so professional, about a month ago, I was clearing out a storage unit in Colorado, and I come across a bunch of black and white pictures. Well, these turned out to be pictures that I took when I first got assigned and got off the boat in the Philippines. They're not real good, and I can't identify everything in them, but maybe you folks out there can help me identify these. So I guess we'll start off with the old set of pictures. Victor?
Got the first one here?
Oh, no, that's the new set. I want the old.
When he was a teenager.
Okay. This one you can't see very well, but it is actually, I went out to Corregidor, Batangas, and the fortifications out there were all destroyed. This is a sign that was up on the fort. Can you read that bit? It says top side, I can't read it from here. Can you read it?
Topside parade ground. Hoist the colors to its peak and let no enemy ever haul them down. General MacArthur gave this command here in March 2nd, 1945, after the island had been secured by men of the 503rd Parachute Infantry, the 34th Infantry, and the 151st Infantry.
Okay, that was one, that was out there. Next slide, please. This is a destroyed gun emplacement out on Corregidor. I don't know whether the Japanese destroyed it or whether we had destroyed it, and so the Japanese couldn't use it. But that's what Corregidor looked like when I was out there. It completely been overgrown by jungle. The jungle moved in right away. You know, things grew prolific in the Philippines. So next, here is a picture across the river. I think it's the, what's the name of the river? The Pasay River. And that's, the buildings across the way are the Manila Hotel and I think the Army Navy Club. Next slide. This is the boat, when the troop ship arrived, the pilot boat came out to take the troop ship into Manila, and I just took a picture of the pilot boat. That's my first experience seeing Carabao. Wow, what are these things, you know? And the Filipino guys are running them down there, and the Carabao are really impressive. They're big and so forth. There's another picture of a, there they are, down in there. And I really liked the Carabao. I was impressed by them. So at one point, I went up to Liba, Batangas, and I had there was a wood carving area up there. So I had a guy make me a Carabao head, and then I put real Carabao horns on it. Okay, and I was going to bring that back and have that mounted on my wall at home. Unfortunately, somebody liked it better than I did because it never got home. These are the buildings. If I looked at the end of our encampment where we were, there was a regular street. This is the buildings that we saw down there. This is what Manila looked like at that time. And it's not in this picture, but there was one building down there that looked almost like this, but was still inhabited. People lived in it because there wasn't any other place to go. And at one point, there was a big explosion one night, and a booby trap that had not been de-booby trapped went off, and it killed 19 people. You know, and that was not an uncommon event there because there were still booby traps all over the place, even though it was almost a year after we got back into Manila. This, I believe, is the Parliament building. Again, and somebody else out there might know better than me. But if you went down Rizal, you know, there used to be a bunch of government buildings on there. I think they've all been replaced now with modern structures. But the post office and the Parliament building, I believe this is the Parliament building, and as you can see, it's actually just collapsed. It's bullet holes all over, bombs, and basically it's a wrecked building. But that was, again, that was what Manila was in 1945. Next picture. Here again, you see the tall tower, I think, is the control tower for the harbor at that time. It was the harbor master's building. And I guess it's a corner of the Parliament building and this another government building. And again, I can't identify it. And but that's what Manila looks like for you guys. Next one. Just another detail of that same building. It was a little bit more of a close-up. And you can see it's destroyed, basically. Next. If you have any questions or anything, please just say right now, or if you recognize something, or if you want me to try to identify where it was, I will. It's been a long time since I was there, so memories kind of failed. And here again, this is the apartment building. I think a close up of it. At the same corner of the building from a slightly different angle. I believe this was a post office building, and again, you can see it's pretty well shot up. It was just another one of the destroyed buildings. This again, this is what we lived with. Okay, here you can't see it very well, but on the will you go point to that white building on the corner there, please? That building. I believe that's the Manila Hotel. And again, these are those same Parliament buildings and all that you can see. And I've got a little note there that way over in the corner was the PS detachment. So you can see where we were relative to, it must have been the governmental headquarters before the war, because all of these really marvelous big buildings, you know, major structures were all along Rizal, and then this pretty much intersection near the Luneta. Well, I said we had a pretty good life. That's not me in the picture, but the girl that's in there. Some of the Army guys, the Air Force guys, took a B-17 to Australia to get it repaired. So while they're in Australia, they meet some girls. Well, two of the girls wanted to come back to the Philippines, so load them on the B-17 and off we go. You know? So, anyway, these two girls finally wound up staying at the Philippine Scout detachment. There was Jackie Court and Jackie Hunter. And this is Jackie Court right here. And they were just our girlfriends. They were there. Marcellinus, the commanding guy there, he was an expert in getting things from the government. Things he wasn't supposed to have. Okay, the streets were a little bit messed up around our encampment there. So Marcellini convinces somebody to give him a D8 tractor. So we graded our things all around. Well, just the D8 was selected kind of rough. So we went out and he got a road grader. Okay? But the rock is still kind of loose. So he goes out and he gets a road roller. So we had our own construction apparatus right there in there. And anything he wanted, he got cameras, movie cameras, and we used to get movies from somewhere. So we had our own entertainment right there on our porch in our unit. And that was Marcellinus. He, government, you know, he knew how to, he made friends with the Navy, because the Navy had supply barges out in Subic Bay. So we would have naval officers in there as guests, and they would, you know, entertain them with all of our stuff, drinks and everything else. And the next thing we know, we have really great dinnerware from the Navy. And he got stuff, and he didn't like the rations that we got. We got really bad rations out of they would give us canned lamb. It was supposed to be meat, you know. Well, you pull it out of the can and it looked like a mop more than anything else. Marcellinus said, nah, we're not going to do that. So we got Navy supplies shipped into us, and we ate better that way. And anyway, this is me. That's me sitting in the Jeep there. And that's the other Jackie. And anyways, well, yeah, it's just our girlfriend, isn't it? So, go ahead, next picture. This picture here is the first light of my life. Her name was Lily Tense, and she was the first real girlfriend I ever had. When I went through high school, and you know, we were too busy working and everything. I didn't do all the dating and everything in high school. I was kind of naive, I guess. Anyway, so Lily, another one of the officers who was there, would go to church. He was a Catholic guy. Go to church on Sunday and come home with a new girlfriend. And she would have her chaperone with her. I don't know how he did it, you know. But anyway, Willie Ted showed up at the encampment, and Lily and I liked each other, so we dated, and we became an item. She helped me celebrate my 20th birthday out at the Wackpack Country Club on Champaign, you know. Anyway, I really wanted to marry Lily. But my commanding officer, Marshal Edith, he gets me aside, he says, no, you're not going to do that. You're too young. You don't have any idea what's going on. And so he would never give me permission to marry Lily because you had to have permission at that time for Philippine war brides and all, you know. I left and I went back. I saw Lily in 1955 when I was going into Indonesia. We landed at Manila, and I had dinner with Lily at that time. The interesting thing was she would never correspond with me. She wrote and corresponded with my mother until my mother died, all those years. She came to the United States for a while because she had relatives here, some of her kids or something got here. But she was totally, she and my mother talked about me all the time. I don't know what they say. I don't know that I want to know what they say. Anyway, she would send really, I have a whole bunch of items from the Philippines, little collectibles, plates, fans, you know, and she would send my mother stuff all the time. So obviously she probably had enough feeling for me, the same as I had for her, but I would have married her, Marshal Enos, had we said, no, you can't do it. So that's my girlfriend. Her father was a serviceman, her mother was a Filipino, so that's who she was. Oh, and one of the little things about those Jeeps, well, I'm rambling, you know, I don't have this organized, but one of the things about the Jeeps that we had, you know, I told you we had Swan stole the Jeep back and he gave it to me. Well, what we did at that time, in order to prevent somebody stealing these things, because there were no keys in them, you just turned them on and off. So we would go into the ignition system and wire a secondary coil into the primary coil. And then you brought a wire up and you put it through your dashboard, insulated or whatever, and it went under the little switch that you turned. And you had a secondary switch outside. So when you got out of your Jeep, you flipped the secondary switch, and that initiated the whole thing. The next guy that turned on the ignition key really got the shock of his life. So that was all fine, except one night I took Lily home after our date, and it was, I guess, early in the morning rather than late at night. And I come and I took her, walked her home, walked her up to her door, went back out, and got in my Jeep. I forgot to turn the switch off outside. I had to shock the market.
That's the last picture.
Okay, so you want to go to the other? Now, these are the copies of the pictures that I just found. Okay, and so I had them copied, and I figured I'd show them to you guys. This series of pictures was taken, I started the day before, I started on July the 3rd when we were getting ready to have this ceremony about the you know, giving the Philippines their independence. And the picture in the background are people from the Philippine Army, and they're just pictures of the activity that was going on. You can see them practicing, they're getting ready to raise their flags, and they're trying to rehearse a little bit for the parade they're going to have the next day. I'm going to put the next one. This was part of the parade. It was the Philippine Army artillery. Again, it was, you know, they had all the military stuff go by and parade, troops and equipment and everything else. So this just a picture of their artillery. This, on the next day, this, I don't know if you can see them, these little dots up there are the flyover that we had at the celebration. You know, whenever you do anything like that, a big flyover. So there's a bunch of B-17s, I think, going over here. Next picture. I don't, oh, that's kind of, there's this was another picture of the flyover. There's 2 or 3 of those. There's more, a little bit more. Okay, here's everybody getting ready to start the actual parade. This is on parade day, I think, on July 4th. You can see the Philippine flag on the left, and I don't know what the white flag on the right is, but this is just, and the band is getting ready to start up down there, start the parade. Next picture. And here is the actual parade started. The band is now actually in full swing, marching down. This is on Resolve. Well, no, it's the main loop street that goes through Manila. It was on the side. It was on the foot. Harmony Club. This is a little vehicle that belonged to the Philippine Army. They had these little patrol vehicles, and one of the problems that we had was on Route 1, going back up and on to the Angeles, Pampanga, and at that time the Bulahawks would come out, and they would surround a barrio at night and go in and take whatever they wanted, food, equipment, women, and then they would wait for vehicles to go through the barrio, and they would take and try to shoot between the taillights, you know, to stop vehicles from going up and down Route 1. So the Philippine Army at that time, they would patrol it with these little things. We would have convoys to go up and down the road. One night, I came out of Camp O'Donnell. We were on patrol looking for hooks, and the guy riding down the road in a 6x. We see a bunch of Filipino troops along the side of the road, just walking along. And we decided, okay, we'll stop and pick them up. So they all jumped in the truck right away. And we're going down, and I didn't understand it, but one of the other people understood Tagalog. And these guys are talking about the others. What others? Well, it turned out that their unit had been ambushed by the Hucks, and there were like 6 or 7 of them in the ditch that had been shot. And these guys didn't say anything. All they wanted to do was get away from the Hucks, you know. So we turned around, went back, and we got the other people and took them to the hospital in Camp Clark Field. But that was a common occurrence. You was kind of dangerous to go up and down Route 1 at night. You didn't really do that. This is the Philippine flag flying the first time after the, okay. I took it when it was up. The next picture, here is the American flag coming down and the Philippine flag going up right after the Declaration of Independence. So that's kind of a little historical thing there. And I think that thing is the national flagpole is down at Resolve Park. The flagpole is on there. Am I correct? Does anybody know? Is that flagpole still there?
Yes.
Is any, are you familiar with Resolve Park? Anybody?
Yes.
Okay. I think that flagpole, you are. Is that flagpole still there? You don't know? I don't either. Okay. There's the base of the flagpole, and in the background is the platform and the area where they actually signed the independence thing, and MacArthur hands it over and gives it to the Philippines. And this, right, that's where the ceremony took place. So that's the historic question. Nick, oh, you've seen that picture. Go back to that picture again. Oh, no, that's okay. Yeah. Okay, picture.
This one?
No, go to the next.
Oh, the next one?
Next, yeah. Again, I think that's a Resolve monument in the background there, and this is the where they built the bleachers and so forth for the ceremony. It's just part of the construction and getting ready for the independence performance and ceremony. Next. These are the bleachers. And I think that's Manila Hotel and Army Navy Club in the background back there. But these are the bleachers the day before when they were building, getting everything ready to go. I think this is on. This is actually the day of the ceremony, before the parade started. People were just coming in. Next. That was the American flag before it came down, and that's the national flagpole. Next.
That's it.
That's it? Okay. So, that's my impression. You know, I love the Philippines, and I love the Filipino people. They've been in my life for a long time. Actually, they started out, I was still impressionable, and you could still, you know, train me when I first started. But the Filipino people have been in my life forever. I'm an engineer in California. When I had my office, it turned out that most of my employees were Filipinos. I still am very, very, very close to Manuel Sombulan. He's from Angeles. But, you know, at one point, I turned around, I said, everybody that worked for me is a Filipino. And people said, well, that's really impressive. And it was, until you realize they only had one employee. So anybody, like I say, this is kind of a rambling thing. It's me, it's who I was, and what happened at that particular time. So if you have any questions, you want to discuss it, you can do it now, or you can see me later. I'll be around, and I'll fill you in on any of the details you want. So that's how it was.
Thank you, George. Normally we would do Q&A, but we have another presentation. We're running a bit late. George is going to be around for dinner. He's going to be around. You can talk. Feel free to come up and talk to him. Let's take 5 minutes.